Thank you very much. Mr. Jack, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, I want to commend Chairman Arrington. He is someone who I've gotten to know. I'm just a freshman, but someone who speaks unbelievably passionately well and puts his words into action. And I just want to note for the record, just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, this is the fastest budget ever passed by a budget committee?
It's the fastest budget resolution ever marked up and passed by a budget committee in the 150 years since the 1974 Budget Act.
Well, I think you should be commended for that, and I think that the American people delivered House Republicans more votes than any other time in history because they wanted to see action quickly, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing. Our colleagues on the other side, they, as many of the colleagues on our side have noted, push fear-mongering, scare tactics. And I think one of the things that I take particular issue with is the suggestion that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was not helpful to the economy. To me, it was a cornerstone of President Trump's first term, his legislative agenda during that first term, and I think it's one of the reasons why so many Americans elected him, because they trusted him and they trusted House Republicans to lead on the economy. It's one of the things that we continually see in polling across the board. Americans trust Republicans when it comes to the economy. So one thing I just want to take a little bit of time today, speaking of, is what I find to be an issue that should be bipartisan, but I don't find it yet from the other side, and that is the overwhelming fraud within the payment system that we see from so many of these government programs. We held a hearing last week in Oversight and Government Reform in which we discussed $675 billion misspent and mishandled by the Biden administration, particularly with government programs. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could yield to you for a moment just to ask, would you mind illuminating for the record and for anybody watching some of the improper payments that we have to deal with and how this budget resolution could provide instructions to help us cure the scourge of improper payments?
Well, it is a tremendous amount. This federal government is fraught with waste. It's riddled with fraud to the tune of about $240 billion a year. This is according to the Government Accountability Office. That's just improper payments. The fraud, they say, and that's just 70 programs. That's not TANF. That's not some of the larger programs at HUD and across the federal government. They believe that the upward bound of fraud is closer to $5 trillion over the 10-year budget window. So it's, you know, currently just that improper payment number for the 70 programs, that little slice of the federal government, is more than we spend on the entire United States Army. If you look at the $2.7 trillion in improper payments over the 10-year window, it's larger than Russia's entire economy. So I think that too many Republicans, quite frankly, have been intimidated by the scare tactics we're hearing today. They are the same old, and they are tired. And I think Elon Musk has done a tremendous job of turning the rocks over and doing what Congress has failed to do in their oversight responsibility. And that is to shine a light in the dark places and show just how horribly defrauded the taxpayers are. I mean, these are just examples, and they're outrageous and absurd. At USAID, these DEI orchestras, the transgender comic books, the list of the absurd is endless. And the American people are wondering why not every member of Congress, regardless of party, are not up in arms. They realize that there is tremendous waste and fraud. And one of the abuses of the taxpayer dollars is to spend tax dollars on people who are in this country illegally. We talked about the $2 trillion deficits that will double over the next 10 years. Medicare is within the 10-year window of insolvency. And who knows, if we have a sovereign debt crisis, how we are able to fund and sustain any of these programs. And yet, according to Numbers USA, we're spending $9,000 per illegal immigrant on social services that rightfully belong to the most vulnerable American citizen. And by the way, that $9,000 is more than we spend for the most vulnerable among us on Medicaid. Just to repeat that, we spend $9,000 per illegal immigrant for social services, which is more than we spend on American citizens who need and make use of the health care safety net of Medicaid. And collectively, of the $150 billion a year that we spend for social services on illegal immigrants is more than we spend on our military's retirement benefits. So the fraud, the waste, and the abuse is systemic, it's endless, and we, I guess, have been afraid and have been sort of scared into inaction. But I think President Trump represents the bold leadership that is required to save this country. And on this issue and many others, he's demonstrated that. And I think this fiscal framework is simply a way to deliver on the mandate that he was given and that we were given.
And if I can just add, in closing, not just was that mandate delivered in November, but yet still sustained with public polling. We saw a poll just a few days ago, 53% approval rating for how the president's conducted his administration thus far, amplified by, of course, your actions and everyone else's actions to put forth an America First budget and to put forth an agenda that unleashes the American economic potential we all know we deserve and our most vulnerable communities deserve. So with that, I yield back to our chairwoman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. Mr. Norman, you're recognized.